All right, Shawn Stevenson. Hey, welcome back to the Fit2Fat2Fit Experience podcast. How are you?
Grateful to be here, man. Doing great.
I know we're here in Salt Lake City, Utah. How do you like Utah so far?
Utah is different. I wasn't expecting it to be this hot.
Yes.
You know, we're rolling around 100 today, but it's beautiful, man. The mountains. There are some strange things here, though. I saw something for the first time.
What's
when
that?
I was driving down the highway. There was an exit that said "runaway truck exit."
Yeah, you never seen that before?
Apparently, there's runaway trucks still. Like, this isn't a James Bond movie. Like, what is going on? You know?
You never seen that before?
I've
a lot
never
of
seen anything like that.
You know, their brakes go out, right?
Yeah.
And rather than them crashing into something and dying, they have this like runaway kind of ramp that will help them.
I guess, man. We shouldn't need that, you know.
But that's not just a Utah thing. Just FYI, I think I've seen it in some like steeper parts of mountains, like Denver and stuff like that.
Okay.
But you don't have that problem in St. Louis.
Well, my virgin eyes have never laid upon such a thing.
That's good, interesting observation. No, it's a dry heat here. It's a dry heat.
Yeah,
you know, I grew up in Virginia, and I remember like 2 days for football.
Yeah.
At 7 a.m., you're sweating bullets already.
Yeah.
You know, so
It's muggy. Yeah, same thing in St. Louis. Very humid. So like 95 is like really like 105 with an attitude problem.
Yeah.
You know, it just like kind of chokes you ever so slightly.
Yeah, man. So, you know, first question for you. When when you see athletes, singers, performers, they have a talent, right? They practice that talent over and over again. For you, how often do you practice the talent of your voice? You got the best voice, you know, in the game. Do you practice? Do you sit there and like listen to yourself?
No, absolutely. You know what? What's so funny? Like I was talking to my wife yesterday. It was the first time I actually talked about it because you know people have said this and that over the years, but I'm just like it's just my voice, you know. But I was kind of talking to her and inquiring like when we first got together, were you like this guy's voice or whatever? She was like, not really.
Really?
You know. But there was something that changed.
Okay.
I believe just something that is a little more subtle, and also I really feel that there's a texture to our voices. Like people can sense things, you know. There's like a connection. There's like a sense of purpose, you know, with our voice. There's very slight things, and I think that just my shifting in who I am, you know, in my level of focus and service, and just wanting to communicate, and also, you know, the thing that we kind of came upon was meditation.
Yeah.
You know, but there was like a humming meditation that I used to do.
Okay.
That her mother taught me.
Really?
And it was for the, you know, I won't get too on the, but it was the Anahata chakra, you know, meditation. But, you know, she really spoke to my, you know, kind of analytical brain, which is like, what is the purpose of this? Why does it matter? She was like, this has to do with attention, need, and love, you know, this dichotomy. And I definitely felt probably, if anything, as far as these chakras, you know, was probably where my alignment was out of balance.
Interesting.
You know, because just the way I grew up, you know, and kind of being in a situation where it was a lot of uncertainty, you know, violence, you know, alcohol, drugs, all that stuff, and just really knowing like I'm not gonna live like this, you know. And I became self-centered, but it wasn't my intention. Like I wanted to be a good person, but it was just like a survival mechanism. You know? And so having this shift over, like I definitely had a lot caught up in my heart, like a lot of fear around love and putting myself out there. So doing this meditation, I don't know if it was this specifically that helped or just the practice of sitting and being with oneself, you know, but it did change me like tremendously, you know, from that point. And I also think maybe it has something to do with kind of smoothing out my voice too. I don't know.
That velvet audio. Do you look back at your old self and kind of not even recognize who you were as a kid versus who you are now? The things like you talked about meditation. Yeah. I'm sure as a teenager you weren't thinking or hearing about meditation from friends or family, right?
No, absolutely not. Yeah, and I remember when I started meditating, my little brother, one day I went over to his house. He was like, "So I heard you meditate? What is that?" And I was like, man, just don't worry about it, you know? And, you know, but today, you know, my brother, you know, much closer, he's kind of in my universe now, you know, but I had to kind of lead the way and to, you know, but yeah, from looking back and you know, you do the same thing. Sometimes we look back on memories, you know, childhood stuff, and there's this thread of me that's always there,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like I always knew that I was going to do something special, you know,
Yeah.
and I think we all kind of feel like there's something special,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but sometimes we don't step into it. And I just wanted the opportunity, you know, like I knew that it was going to happen, and I'm just going to keep getting better, keep working on myself. I had this drive, and I think, you know, I mentioned earlier, like the environment I grew up in, that was like after second grade, and I moved in with my mother and my stepfather. And prior to that, my earliest memories, I lived with my grandmother.
Yep.
Suburban neighborhood, nice, quiet. Birthdays were amazing. You know, she made everything special. I had my own little table, my own little dinner table. I know my grandfather probably couldn't stand it, you know, but I got to eat what I wanted, my little fish sticks, you know, and Cartoon Express. And life was good, man. Life was really good. Like I just, you don't know what it's like. I think, and you know, and this is something that I've been actually going back and forth with my brother, because he didn't have that experience and he carried resentment about it. He's younger. He's like 5 years younger than me. And so after second grade, I moved in with him, and that was just kind of his reality. But I'll tell you, I think it's far worse on a psyche when you have something and then it's taken away from you versus you never know what it's like, you know? And so I had this safety, security, love, and then everything changed like overnight, you know? Even like everything changed in my reality. You know, I'm biracial, you know, and so early on living with my grandmother, this the white side of my family. I went to a predominantly white school in that area. And then overnight I went to a predominantly black school, like maybe one white kid in the school. And you know, at the other school, and you know, so just having to, and me being different, like I look different from everybody. There's a lot of us now, you know, but like early 80s, it wasn't a popular thing yet, you know? So just trying to figure out myself, figure out where I fit in. I just remember wanting to fit in. And I think that was the biggest mistake, you know, looking back on it. If I only would have knew, if I had some kind of support, you know, trying to fit in. But it's a human thing, you know, to want to fit in. But at the same time, our uniqueness is the greatest asset that we have. You know, but like when I went to the city school, you know, I changed the way I was dressing and everything, you know. Then I went back to, it was called, listen to this, Drew, this is true. It's called the desegregation program. Right?
What? Really?
This is, what times are we living in, you know? And so this is like busing city kids out to the good school, right?
Okay.
And so I went back, that's where I went after the inner city school, and I go into that. And now again, I'm trying to figure my way out. I'm putting on the soccer shorts. I'm wearing the Umbros, you know, like I'm just trying to fit in. But ultimately, you know, this process, and this is what I see, just to really kind of answer the question again, is I see the evolution of myself, and I'm so grateful. And I want everybody to feel the same way, because their transformation isn't because of the person they are right now. It's that earlier person. And giving thanks and being grateful for them for saying I'm done, or for saying that this is the moment things are going to change, or saying, you know, I'm going to take this path. This is the person that I'm going to choose to be with, or, you know, this is the job. That whatever, where you are right now, you know, the progress that you have made was because of some earlier version of yourself. If that makes sense.
No, it does make sense. And I think, you know, we're a combination of all of our past experiences, and it's like little calculations of every experience we've had. Like, oh, okay, this was bad, this was good. Take all those bads and goods from the past 30 plus years, and it's kind of created who you are today. And that's why, you know, for me, experiences are so powerful in this life, and experiences shape your beliefs. If you didn't have those experiences, you wouldn't have the beliefs that you have now. It's interesting you telling me this. It seems like you've kind of had to go through different phases of your identity, from one identity, like, oh, I'm this kid, wait a second, I'm this kid, and then now you're back. And I feel like we as humans go through phases in our life where we have to figure out our identity sometimes. And I did a post the other day on social media where it's like 10 years ago, I never would have thought I would be where I am today. And 10 years from now, I'll probably look back on me and be like, what, dude, what were you thinking? Like, you thought you had it figured out. But I think that's part of humans kind of evolving and moving forward in life, is, you know, having new experiences that shape your beliefs. And sometimes we think we know, you know, how things are for us, but sometimes life, you know, punches you in the face, you know, punches you in the gut, cheap shots you sometimes.
Right.
When you're
John,
not looking.
Look, boom.
It's like, come on, man. What else do I need to learn? But I think it's really powerful to have those experiences. And, you versus your brother, like you were saying, he didn't have what you had. And you said he had resentment towards you. Are you guys cool now?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
I love my brother, and he,
Awesome.
he loves me. But it's not just resentment towards me, but the situation, and also my grandmother.
Yeah.
He carried a lot of resentment towards her. It's just like, why? Like, she's been an awesome grandmother. But after, part of the reason that I moved back with my mother is that my grandmother moved away. Like, moved to Piedmont, Missouri, which is like close to the Boot Heel of Missouri, like the quote country, right?
And so, she couldn't take you.
I don't know. I mean, I don't have her here to ask a question.
Yeah.
And my relationship with my mother, I really don't know. She's not the most honest human being.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I don't know what the story really is.
Mm-hmm.
And this is another thing I want to share. I've never talked about this before, but I really want people to please take advantage of the elders that are in your life right now. Ask them questions.
Yeah.
Think about it, because there's so many things I want to talk to her about. So many things I want to ask her. And I didn't know, you never know when that time is up. So ask those questions, find out where you came from, what their stories are.
Yeah.
Because it really helps to paint a clearer picture. There's a lot of gaps for me, but I'm still very happy and content about it. It's just like, if I did have a choice, like, people ask the question, if you could change one thing,
Yeah.
Usually I'm like, I don't want to mess up my timeline, like The Flash.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody watched that TV show. I had to stop watching it.
Oh, really?
Because it kept screwing things up, going back in the past.
Or like the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
Kinda, you step on a butterfly, it affects this and changes your whole life.
Just
right?
keep it. I like where I'm at now, but it would be just to ask more questions and to listen more, because I guess this goes back to what you said earlier about we think we have it figured out.
Yeah.
I remember my grandma sat me down. I'm like, 16, 17. I'm already having sex, and she has the talk with me, right? And I don't live with her or nothing, but she was just looking out for me.
Yeah.
She called. This is my grandmother.
Yeah.
And she's like, giving me condoms. I'm like, Grandma, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
But I was just like, I thought I knew what I was doing. Cut to having kids young.
Yeah.
Thanks, Grandma. Like, I know you tried, but I didn't get the memo. But we all go through that, especially around that age.
Mm-hmm.
We really. This is why it blows me away today, man. There are more kids than ever. Like, there are a lot of college students, for example, that listen to my show, that follow my work, that read my book, and getting that information at that age and being open to mentorship, and knowing that, like, for me to get where I want to be, these people have already done it.
Yeah.
I think that's happening more than ever, but at the same time, there's also a lot more people lost than ever. Like, there's like two totally different paradigms. There are very few people in the middle.
Yeah.
There are people that are just super caught up in social media, and just like celebrity following, that kind
reality
of thing.
TV.
Yeah. And then there's these people that are like all about elevation.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying any of them are wrong.
Yeah.
It's all a level of being. But I don't know if you've heard like the tipping point theory.
Maybe.
Like, this
Go
is
ahead.
basically when a certain level of humanity or a certain percentage of kind of human consciousness is doing a certain thing, it becomes pervasive.
Yeah.
And so there's like a study where it's like, monkeys on one side of an island, they started to wash their particular sweet potatoes.
Yeah.
And then, like, once enough of them started doing it in a completely other place where there's no connection, they began doing the same thing.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
So this is getting into like some metaphysical stuff, but of course, like, and it's some of the stuff we can talk about today, but I'm very heavy into the science, but some things we just don't understand yet.
Yeah.
We're trying to figure out, we're trying to prove,
Yeah. So my question is, you telling me your story, how do you go back and teach people like your young self that, here you are meditating, a scientific type of guy. How do you take that inner city kid and get them to be on this level where you're at so they can be ahead of where you were at that age? Like how do you make it relatable to them? Like, and what have you found that works?
That's so easy, man.
Really?
It's so easy because it's just a simple principle. If you can't see it, you can't be it.
Yeah.
You know, so for them to have the example, first of like, I didn't know it was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And also something to aspire towards, like having something that they want.
Yeah.
You know, because what they see as far as like fame, success, having money,
Yeah.
you know, it's like athletes or rappers.
Yeah.
That's the two options you got.
Yeah.
That's it, you know, or like, you know, doing something on television, whatever. There's so much more, but what examples do you have? I didn't know that there was anything else. I went to school, I was going to be a doctor because I saw it on television, you know, I saw it on TV. Like, I should be a doctor. I hated science.
Yeah.
I detested it, you know, but funny enough, of course, like it's my deep passion now.
Yeah.
You know, like every day I'm researching something to do with science, you know, but that's really what it is, man. And so I used to do a lot more talks. Now I'm getting back into it because it's more of a complete approach, because it frustrated me. Like I would go do a talk like at a school for girls that's just like, you know, there's like metal detectors, you know, like these are girls who've been kicked out of other schools, you know.
Oh, gotcha.
And like I would go into these situations and they would have like a really powerful kind of transformation, you know, in their thinking in that moment. But if it's not supported with their environment, you know, like you can forget about it, you know, but hopefully that seed blooms at some point. But now, like, if I'm going to do this, I need the staff involved. They need to be there for a talk. I need the parents.
Yeah.
Like, let's create something more holistic so everybody can get on the same page.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So, but, you know, now I used to even shy away from that stuff, you know, like, especially with success, you know, now, you know, if I pick up one of my son's friend, like I picked him up for football practice and he gets into the Jaguar, you know, I'm like, you see this car? I got this from helping people.
Yeah.
I got this from writing books.
Yeah.
You know, like
that's
that. Another way.
Yeah.
So,
see it to believe it.
Yeah.
I like that, man. And I think it's that relatability factor. And I think, you know, if they can see people like you or people that they look up to and see this is how you paved your way instead of like one of these two options, there's more than just two options, right?
Exactly.
I think that's brilliant, man. I think it's really great advice for people listening, and not just for, you know, inner city kids or teenagers. It's your average American sometimes that's like, you know, doesn't take care of their health or doesn't make themselves a priority or doesn't see themselves, they don't have that self-worth yet, you know? So this can apply to almost anybody. Shifting gears a little bit, I want to talk about like you're a man of science, and I love that. What are some like the latest studies you've seen that have like really kind of blown your mind or made an impact on shaping you, right, and shaping your message to your audience, and maybe some also, I hate the word biohacking sometimes, but like, you know, biohacking things that have made a huge impact in your life and other people's lives that you're trying to get across in your messages.
You know what? I mean, I love to be blown away. Like I love finding, and it happens so frequently. Like I come across a study and it's just like, how does nobody knows this? How? So one of those things, I think that, you know, recently I've really been into, there's this new saying that's going now that fresh is the new fit.
Yeah, I love
right?
that, man.
And so having these people in my life who are like working with professional, I was just on the phone yesterday with somebody who's a linebacker in the NFL, you know, like it's in my universe now, you know, and he's trying to find that thing, you know, and also the nutrition programs are bleeding off of like coming from the people that I bring to the world as well. Like I help introduce them to larger audiences, you know, like Dr. Kate Shanahan, for example. But I've been really interested in recovery. And because, you know, we see somebody, as we sit here now, it was just a couple weeks ago, LeBron James signs for, what was it, $135 million? Something like that.
53, I think.
0.3.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out collectively.
Go Lakers, by the way. I'm glad to see the Lakers are back.
There you go.
I'm a Lakers fan.
For
and
4 years, that kind of money.
Yeah.
You know, and he's supposed to be, if this was 20 years ago, on his decline.
Yeah.
But he's not.
He's at his prime.
You know, he's extending his prime.
Yeah.
What's going on? And there's even been press conferences where he's like, you know, all right, guys, final question. You know, I got to get started on my recovery.
Yeah.
I also mentioned him in Sleep Smarter, in my book Sleep Smarter, because he's somebody that uses sleep as a part of his training.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want to just live longer. I want to live good longer.
Yeah.
You know, like you know, people say we're living longer now, but people aren't really living longer. And if you think about it, they're dying longer. You know, it's just like extending that suffering. You know, and there are people right now, you know, like Mark Sisson is a great example. You know, he's in his 60s, you know, solid mid 60s. He's, you know, first of all, if we talking aesthetics, like he's shredded, like he's in incredible shape. But it's not just that. There's a vitality. Like there's so much vitality just radiating from him, you know? And so it's like, what are you doing? And so asking these questions, talking to these people, because I don't feel I'm in a place where I can, from a very kind of conscious place, talk about longevity. I can talk about the science, but I'm still relatively young, you know? And so I want to talk to those people. And so with that said, with the science, you know, something that is really fascinating to me that people are still not talking about yet. So cryotherapy's hot, right? That's an oxymoron right there. That just happened.
It's cold too, but it's hot. I know what you mean.
That just happened. Life is poetry. But so it's really hot right now. We've got, again, a lot of professional athletes doing it. But again, for decades, folks have been doing the ice bath thing. You know, they just knew like it did something. But now we have some of the research to affirm what it is. And by the way, there's a lot more anecdotal evidence with cryotherapy. There's not much clinical data on the benefits. If we're talking about like icing things, like an ice bath, we've got a little bit more data on that, you know, but not saying it doesn't work. One of the things that we're looking at, why does this work? Number one, and this is one of those fascinating things that I'm just shocked people aren't talking more about, is when we have this cold exposure, we see an uptick in our body's production and activity of brown adipose tissue. Right?
Can you explain what that is for people?
Sure. Brown adipose tissue, or BAT for short. It's a type of fat. It's a type of brown fat. So adipose tissue is fat tissue. It's a type of fat that burns fat. All right. So it burns the white adipose tissue. So when you think like I'm trying to get rid of fat, what you're trying to quote burn is white adipose tissue. So brown adipose tissue, the reason that it's brown is that it is very, very dense in mitochondria. That's what makes it brown. Mitochondria, you've of course talked about this on your show, I'm sure, but these are the quote energy power plants of our cells, right? We have multiple mitochondria in our cells, and these create our cellular energy, ATP, like the energy currency of the body. So your experience of having energy is increased in a sense when you have more brown adipose tissue, or your body's ability to recover, to do processes. That's the best way to put it. This is why you see part of the reason with the uptake in recovery from doing cold therapy, right? So that's number one. Also just on that same lane of it being something that burns fat. Oh, so by the way, so brown adipose tissue, why don't we have more of it? Where is it? So it's mostly like kind of like our sternum, upper back, shoulders. We have a little bit. Babies have a lot of it. It's like a protective thing. It's like uses fat. It's kind of like insulation. It's able to use fat to burn fat as energy. Right. And so every time I think about this, when I just said it, I think about Game of Thrones. And there was this baby, you know, there's this guy, he's like training to be like a wizard or something. And he's got like a girlfriend, and she's got a baby. It's a whole complicated thing if you don't watch Game of Thrones.
I do. I'm trying to remember who's who, but go ahead. Keep going.
So they're just out in the snow constantly. Like they're on the run. Like there's like all kinds of people trying to take them out, right? And there's this baby. I'm just like, how is that baby alive still? You know, just out in this cold, all these different things. Baby's got that brown adipose tissue. All right. So it's not real, by the way, but you know, but as we get older, we have less. And so this is one way to increase the brown adipose tissue construct that you have on your body. So it just puts you in a stronger metabolic place when you take advantage of the cold.
So cryotherapy, cold showers, ice baths, even just going out in the cold, maybe like in the snow, if you live in a snowy area.
It'll just take longer. You know, in general. You know, versus like with cold water, it's very like intrusive. You know, it's just very, it hits you. It's like a visceral kind of cold, you know, versus cryotherapy. It's different. It's a different type of cold and shorter duration. But both have been found to be effective. And so, by the way, if you're trying to do the cold shower, for example, try and aim and hit like your upper chest, like under your neck, your top of your shoulders, like aim it at that spot. And you could do contrast, like do cold for a while. It actually makes it easier, and then do hot, like
Okay.
go back 1 minute each or something like that. Just start somewhere.
Yeah.
But
So if you don't have access to a cryotherapy chamber or you can't afford it, there's still things you can do to help out with that. So that was one thing. You were going to go to something else, but you went back to brown fat.
well, with brown fat, because that's not the only thing. And here's another crazy thing. Nobody, like, it's just like I find this and I'm like, why is this not like front page news? Especially if people are interested in health and fitness. And that is, it's not just cold that can help with the mobilization, activity, creation of brown adipose tissue. Also, there's a hormone that we hear in relationship to sleep all the time called melatonin.
Yep.
That increases your body's brown adipose tissue and the activity of that tissue. Melatonin
Interesting.
is glorified sleep hormone, but it's not, first of all, it's not even that. It doesn't control sleep.
Yeah.
It really helps to modulate your circadian rhythms overall. Like, it helps to modulate your body's cycle. It's so important. It's not just for sleep, but it is important.
Yeah.
The reason it's so connected to sleep is that you need two conditions met in order to produce melatonin. One, you need a biological night.
Yep.
So that can mean that, number one, it is nighttime, but in our culture, we can manufacture daytime,
Yeah.
So that means like having lights on, you know what I'm saying? But I don't know, a lot of people, I don't know if they've noticed this, but if you're driving home from work, maybe it's 5, 6 o'clock, sun's going down, you start yawning. Like
get sleepy.
your genes are like, this is the time. But again, we can manufacture. And what happens when we're exposed to light is that we have an increase in production of, quote, daytime hormones, namely cortisol, be the one most people are aware of.
Yeah.
And that literally throws out the circadian rhythm. Cortisol and melatonin have like an inverse relationship. And so if cortisol is elevated, melatonin is going to be suppressed.
That's kind of like when your body wakes itself up.
Exactly. Right? Because cortisol should be high in the morning.
Yeah.
Right. But we clinically would see people who we call tired and wired.
Yeah.
So they are physiologically tired, but at night they're just up. But the cortisol is because their cortisol is high. In the morning, they're extremely tired. Very, very hard to get out of bed because their cortisol is too low in the morning.
Yeah.
And so there's certain things we could do to help to reset. We call it a cortisol reset. But the point is, melatonin in and of itself, those two conditions. One, we need a biological night. Two, we need a cyclical dark cycle. So that means it has to be consistent. So if somebody's doing shift work, for example, first of all, why?
Yeah.
If it's for service, you're in emergency services, if it's something that is your passion, absolutely, like nothing but great gratitude.
Yeah.
If this is for money and you got a story attached to it, like this is the only work I could do, you got to stop telling yourself that story, because it is one of the worst things you could do for your health.
Yeah.
And what I want to start to see happen is more support for our emergency services, for our nurses. We got the nurses study. This is one of the biggest studies ever conducted.
What's that?
In the history of the free world.
Yeah.
All right. So the nurses study. So we've got like 65,000 people that they're tracking. And they compiled all this different data over a period of several years. One of the things that they found in this nurses study was that women who worked the overnight shift had over 15% greater incidence of breast cancer.
Whoa.
Right? Immediately. That's one of the first things that really jumped out. And that is substantial. That is a lot. And why is that? Melatonin is also a pretty powerful anti-cancer hormone as well. And so that's one of the things they saw: higher levels of obesity, higher levels of type 2 diabetes, all from being up at night, you know? And it's just because they're not getting that proper biological cycle. So what I would want to see, and I talked about this in my book too, is because it's just like, what do you do? Because if you do shift work and then sometimes you're on, sometimes you're off, they found that the numbers were just about the same. Even if you got back on a cycle, just the fact that you kept interrupting it, it made it just as bad.
Yeah.
And so what I want to see is like a chunk, like maybe they're on for 2 months and then they're off for 4 months, like because the body is very forgiving.
Yeah.
It can get itself sorted, but it needs time to do it, And so with that study, and seeing all the data come out about it is just really, really fascinating, that how much melatonin matters. So what I want to see people do if they are doing shift work, by the way, I'll just throw this out there, they got to create a biological night. Even if they're sleeping at noon, you need to get blackout curtains.
Yep.
You need to tape stuff up, aluminum foil, whatever. Your room should be so dark that you can barely see your hand.
Yeah.
You know, so you can actually produce melatonin.
Interesting.
Because we just kicked it off with, you know, brown adipose tissue, regulating your sleep cycle. Also, you know, as I just mentioned, helping your body to prevent cancer.
So not just supplementing a ton of melatonin and thinking that'll do the trick, or like sleep pills or whatever, like, you know, NyQuil.
Yeah, right.
You know?
Yeah, you might as well just like, just forget about it. It's such a sad situation, because the way that things are set up in our culture, just because it's at, you know, Walgreens or Walmart or even at Whole Foods, doesn't mean that it's good for you. You know, like you could just go buy melatonin. That's hormone therapy. You're doing, like, I'm just going to do hormone therapy. You're just choosing to do it.
Interesting.
It's regulating your entire circadian rhythm. Yeah. Right. And so what we saw, because some of the experts in the field before I wrote my book, they were like, you know, we believe that taking supplemental melatonin will reduce your body's endogenous production. Yeah. Like, but I didn't find that in the data. So I was like, that's interesting. Here's what did happen. Folks who use too much melatonin and use it on a consistent basis, they had a deactivation of their receptor sites for melatonin. Okay. So their body still produced melatonin, but the cells that actually
register.
Yeah, the cells that actually do the job of like the signals and the attachment of these cells and turning on the processes started to shut down. So it's like, it doesn't matter if melatonin, it's kind of like being melatonin resistant.
Gotcha.
And that's what can happen.
Wow, melatonin resistant. That's a new term.
That just happened, man. This is history.
That's so interesting. Yeah, and I've heard from, you know, other people, like, you know, we're looking for like the best, you know, weight loss pill, the best nootropic out there, the best smart drug, like the best performance enhancement. It's sleep. You know, like exactly, we're looking for it in other places with like hyped up caffeinated products, or like these smart drugs, or, you know, whatever it is. I remember our friend Bedros, man, when he was going through a stressful time, he was taking NyQuil at night, and then, you know, tons of coffee throughout the day. And after a few months of this, like, his wife looked into his eyes, and his eyes were like yellow, right? His liver was taking a hit from taking NyQuil every night just so he could pass out and fall asleep. And so it's scary, but it's interesting. But sometimes we know that's the thing we need, but sometimes it's like, you know, life gets in the way, or you're stressed out and you're trying to manage life. Yeah. And that was my question for you is, you know, you're a family man, you know, you got an awesome life. Shout out to Ann. What's up? She's awesome. I love her. And your kids, you got kids, and you're a successful entrepreneur. How do you manage your stress and family life and, you know, and business too? Because that can be stressful too, like making sure you're making X amount of money and performing every single day optimally. What else have you found that helps you kind of stay in that zone of like never too stressed out, you know, but still motivated to get stuff done, and like, you know, kind of be a savage also when it comes to getting work done, you know?
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, I really do feel, I'm of the camp that I believe that we can have it all. Yeah. You know, that we don't have to sacrifice one for the other. And sacrifice isn't bad necessarily. You know, I think the problem is this idea of balance, right? Yeah. I've work-life balance. If things are balanced, it's boring, right? If it's like if you're on a seesaw with somebody and you're balanced, like, what are you doing? Like, I don't want to just, not fun. You know? And so like things are going to be ebbing and flowing. There's going to be a season where you're a little bit more focused on things in business. There's a season where you do more things with the family. So what I believe and what I've done personally is and it's so simple, man. Like I make time each day to fill those cups. Okay. You know what I'm saying? So my self-care is the first thing, you know, like I make sure that I'm in a good place so I can show up my best at the end of the day when my son wants to play damn Beyblades. All right. I don't know. Do you know about Beyblades? Because you got daughters.
I got two girls.
The Beyblades are like these little tops basically, and you pull a cord and you battle each other in this arena, right? Yeah. And we are vicious. Like we go at it with these Beyblades, right? But you know, I might not feel like doing it. You know, it's like, you know, later, bud. You know, I just want to, you know, but I want to make sure that I can show up as good as I possibly can for him. And, you know, so what this looks like is, you know, self-care and also chunking.
Chunking, what's that?
So
sounds like something made up from the Goonies.
Chunk. So chunking is taking, so for example.
Okay, no, I have heard of this. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, it came back.
So for example, certain days are designated for certain things, you know. So my show is a certain day each week that is dedicated for that. I've got this thing over here. The big problem why we feel like we can't get work done is because of something called switching costs. Is when you're going back and forth from different tasks and also being distracted because of things like social media, for example.
Yep.
I know everybody listening has had the just checks, right? So I'll just check real quick, right? You're supposed to be doing something. I'll just check Instagram or I'll just check Twitter, right? And then you get sucked in to the internet black hole. So I keep my phone, at least like if I'm at my desk, my standing desk, like I'll literally toss my phone over on the floor.
There you
go.
Go.
Like just don't put it in hand's reach. All right. And so I can stay focused on the task at hand, execute on that, because we mistake doing work for being effective.
Yeah.
That's what the real problem is. There's time for everything. You got ample time. It kills me, man. People talking about how busy they are.
Yeah.
You have no idea what busy is. I thought I was busy. I'm like 5-10 times more busy than I used to be when I thought I was busy.
Yeah.
And I still have time to do the things that I want.
Interesting.
And because of chunking, so I dedicate a certain amount of time or focus each day to a very specific thing. I execute on that, and then I move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
You know, instead of having these switching costs bouncing all around. So if I'm doing interviews for other people's shows, for example, and like I'll have a day dedicated to that only. I'm not going to do like two interviews and then I'll do this. And if I can find a way to not do it.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes it is the case, you know, like certain people call, you know, you make it happen. If Drew Manning calls, you got to stop what you're doing, you know. But that's it, man. So I chunk my tasks. I have time every day that I spend with my kids and my wife every day. It might not be, but you do need that focus time too.
Sure.
And you need to find that part of a little mini season. You know, my wife and I, we just noticed this, man. We got into it about something so dumb because it always is, you know.
Yeah.
And like we don't really argue. We don't argue. We don't really do that, you know. And it's not to say that arguing is bad, you know, like having disagreements, but we're just like in such a we've been together for 15 years, and I feel like I just met her, you know, like really? I love her so much.
That's awesome. And
we just have such a great relationship. Like I noticed this too recently. I don't know why I'm saying all this stuff, but
that's all good.
Part of the connection with your significant other is you being annoyed by the same things.
Yes.
You know, so there's like this connection that you have on that tip, you know. And so I just noticed that recently. Like, I love that you don't like this thing either, you know. But we realized after it was done, because it was both. Here's the thing: we were arguing about something that was about our elevation, you know, as a family. Just like it had a big. It's not like the big universal change, but something that is just about going to the next level. So it's something positive, and we're arguing about it. And after it's over, we realized like we haven't been on a date, just us, in like 3 weeks.
Wow.
You know, and that's like a cardinal sin, you know. And so even still, because we went on dates, but my younger son will be there, or like you know what I'm saying? Somebody, we even went to the movies and we kind of sat next to each other, you know, and then the kids are over here.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, we might have some quiet time after, but having that time to just, you know, be together. I make sure. The problem is because I used to schedule it, and I haven't been doing that the last couple of months.
Yeah.
Because, you know, a lot of stuff has been going on. I messed up, you know, and so making time, scheduling things, especially if you got a lot of stuff going on, schedule it. Like I got an alarm on my phone that tells me when to take my butt to sleep.
Really?
I don't need it at this point, but you know what I'm saying? Like I've got it scheduled, you know, at this time, because it puts into your psychology that these things are coming up. Your subconscious knows, and it's going to help to maneuver things to make it happen. Yeah. Versus just doing things on the fly.
Yeah. I love that, man. That's really good advice for a lot of people, relationship advice as well. Last question for you is, Tony Robbins talks a lot about this, especially with, unfortunately some celebrities who have kind of taken their own life, which is sad to see, right? And we see from an outside perspective, man, they had everything in the world. They had fame, money, anything you could want, right?
Yeah.
But they chose to end their life, which is sad. And it's like, how did they get to that point? And Tony Robbins talks about this. Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And so we see successful people, but from an outside perspective, money, fame, all that stuff, but they're not fulfilled. Yeah. So for you, you're super successful. What brings you fulfillment in life so that you don't get to that point? Like, what's your fulfillment? Where's it come from?
Man. It's hard to talk about, man.
I know, it's a deep question.
This is important. My grandmother took her life, the most important person in my universe,
Wow.
like who helped to make me who I am. And she did that after my grandfather died. Wow. And she tried to work it out for a year or two. Maybe it's about a year, just being without him. She really died from a broken heart.
Yeah.
And for her, so that question is very close for me. Like I can touch it. Mm-hmm. And having that experience and to see, first of all, I still think it's kind of a Romeo and Juliet story, like I get to choose. Mm-hmm. My uncle, for example, her son, he took it very personally. Yeah. Like, she left us, she left me. I just knew she just didn't want to be without him, and they were an entity. Mm. So I had an imprint on me. It's like the movie Twilight.
I know. I was like, wait a second. Jacob.
I had an imprint on me of what a relationship looks like. There was so much love there, and I understood in a way, that's why I mentioned earlier about I have this struggle in my psyche of I wish I would have done this or that differently, but it's the fulfillment, she can do all the grandma stuff, but if she's missing out on this, on love, which is her why, we're gonna have some problems. And so for me personally, I'm just very cognizant of what I need, and so I know myself. This the temple, know thyself. That's the thing. It's the greatest tenet. But how often do we actually check in and have a sense of self-awareness and have the ability, as my guy E.T. talks about, the ability to self-assess. We don't want to do that. It's messy. It can be messy. Especially in the beginning if you've neglected, because it's like you live in here, you live in your body, but in all this stuff going on in your head, actually addressing it. And is it true? The things that you're telling yourself, the subconscious programs. And so for me, that fulfillment is very simple because I analyzed and I found out what it is. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's growth. I'm very, very fulfilled and happy if I can grow. And literally every day, I just want to get a little bit better. Mm-hmm. That's all it takes. So whether it's with my fitness or with my knowledge base, if I could just learn something today, I'm better. So it doesn't have to be perfect. I don't have to read, 100 pages in a book, but just getting a little bit better, having a little bit of growth brings me so much fulfillment. I feel like today was a success.
Awesome.
And probably in the last 10 years, I've maybe had 2 or 3 days I didn't feel like that, and I remember just feeling I didn't do something to get better today. Because sometimes you do stuff that takes you backwards in a way in the moment, but still, even that, if you reframe it, it's still a teachable moment. It's a learnable moment. That failure, that whatever I did, wasting time, maybe it was arguing, over something stupid for 2 hours, but even when that happened, because I still didn't accomplish what I wanted that day, I did some just small little tasks. But the big thing I want to do, but when even though I felt like just sitting down and having some cake and watching Luke Cage, I just executed. I was just gonna do one thing that I had as my bigger to-dos, but I did 2, and I felt really good. I felt really good. That this thing happened, but I still was able to have that sense of fulfillment for myself. But for real, my number one priority was her. And so just even getting us, back onto where we needed to be. That was a win in of itself.
man, you said so many powerful things right there, and great lessons for all of us. And I think, perspective is huge, right? Your perspective of life, and instead of life happening to you, life's happening for you. So the growth part is essential. As a human being, you need growth to be happy, right? If you're not progressing forward, like most people get unhappy and they get stuck, and there's no progress being made. And I think that's where a lot of people get depressed, right? Yeah. But the interesting thing is, like you said, you have those 2 or 3 days of where that didn't happen, and those are important reminders, lessons to grow from as well, right? Because if you're just progressing forward every single day and life's perfect, life can get boring sometimes. You need certainty and you need uncertainty in life. You need both of those sometimes. And so, but it's important to remember that as you're going through those sucky things, there's something to be learned here. Yep. Instead of cursing God or cursing other people or finding someone to blame for, the sucky thing you're going through. It's hard in the moment to be grateful for what you're going through, but 10 years down the road, you're going to look back and be like, I'm grateful for this because this taught me this. And if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have learned that. So realizing that there's both of those things, good and bad, serve a purpose in your life to help you eventually grow. Absolutely. Right? So I think life happens for our greater good, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. So great advice, great lessons, man. I'm going to let you go because I know that we got other stuff to do today, but I really appreciate you coming back on, and always a pleasure, man. You're welcome here in Utah anytime. You're welcome on my podcast anytime, man. I really appreciate our friendship. So thank you.
Me too, man. Thank you.
Okay. We'll see you next time.